This is the panel on arts, media, and entertainment. I hope that's what you all have in mind here, and we are very happy to be here. This initiative is from the, as we all know, from the Entrepreneurship Center here at Stanford, and we are very happy that the students take a leading, active role in bringing issues of entrepreneurship every year to various audiences. And so here we are, and ours is about, really, if you think about it, is about convergence, or maybe collusion, if you want, collision, I should rather say, between various major industries, computing, communications, consumer electronics, and entertainment and the arts. I'm Robert Burgelman. I'm on the faculty here, and we can hear what happens with these new media. Usually we say, please switch them all off. At Intel, by the way, that would be $100 right here. That would be good because we could all have a drink later. I will say a few words about myself. I'm Robert Burgelman. I'm on the faculty here. I teach a course, or at least two courses in the area that is related to this particular panel's content and subject matter here. I've been at the school for a long time. People ask me, when did you join Stanford? And then I sometimes say, I don't remember, it's that long ago. But I am very happy to be here and to work with this panel, which I am going to ask themselves for each member in a few moments to actually introduce themselves and say a few words. And then we'll ask some questions, but the idea really is for this audience here to get involved and to get a conversation and dialogue going. So I said a moment ago that this is really about convergence, collision, some would say. And in some ways, I think, for someone in the room, it's already a long time ago, but would you agree, since Napster, the world has changed, if you are in media, if you are in entertainment. And then, interestingly enough, a few years ago, suddenly a computing company became very prominent in the area of music, in the area of consumer electronics. How many of you have an iPod? Who has an iPod here? Look at it, yeah. So what am I going to say? And then something like YouTube came around. Who has ever seen themselves on YouTube? If you dare say so. A few. So there's things now happening in the last couple of years that even 5 years ago many of us would not have really fully envisaged. And so that makes it very exciting. It makes it exciting for new opportunities for entrepreneurs, like many in the room are. It makes it also interesting for people like I who do research and try to see how you can bring research and analysis to bear on this new set of phenomena that we were not able to envisage, a sort of strategic dynamics that is quite more intense, more unpredictable than the strategic dynamics that we knew in previous times, I would think. So, having sort of provided a little bit of background, I would like now to each of the players here in this intersection of arts, media, entertainment, and I trust maybe consumer electronics, communications, computing. I don't know what the backgrounds all are, but I'd like to each of the panelists to introduce themselves for a moment and say how they intersect here with the topic that is of interest to us here this afternoon. Why don't we start here with
the one
Tim?
next to the teacher?
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
So my name's Tim Westergren. I'm the founder of a company called Pandora, which is an online music service, an online radio. It's a personalized radio powered by something called the Music Genome Project, which is an enormous musical taxonomy that we've been working on for a long time. The service is about a little over a year old, and we have well over 5 million registered listeners that we've accumulated in the last year. But we've been working on the technology for 7 years, so the company kind of came of age right around when Napster was launching, so we've kind of lived through the glorious years of the dot-com collapse and what looks like a rebirth. And so we've kind of, as a company, have really followed the sort of narrative of, Napster's arrival, chaos in the music business, and then what looks to be kind of an embracing, finally, of the whole music, the sort of digital music industry. So we're now growing quite fast and building an advertising-supported business on top of the radio service.
Thanks.
I'm Jamie Daves. Terrific to be on the panel with Professor Bergelman because I had a strategy course he taught with Andy Grove. It was definitely one of my favorite courses, and I remember it well. I also remember that I argued in favor of the AOL Time Warner merger during that class against Dr. Grove. So you might want to discount everything that I say from that, but you might want to discount them because I got a good grade in the class. So could cut either way. We might have all been wrong. I am the manager, director, founder of a new private equity firm called Platform Equity. We're focused on investing in the media sector. We're really focused around sort of two what I would describe as distinct opportunities. One is in making investments and acquisitions in what would be considered more traditional media companies in publishing, radio, television, film libraries, those kind of things where we, particularly in fast-growing consumer segments, do a lot of consumer research and trying to help those companies cross the chasm in some instances and focus in on sort of multi-platform strategies to realize growth. There's a second opportunity which tends to be more early-stage companies that we're focused in on, which is around content. And we're working with a set of deeply experienced creative and business executives to try to take advantage of a lot of the new platforms that everybody here on this panel is building, and where that other panel that's in the other room that you guys couldn't get into are speaking, where we see a significant new content opportunity. So in that case, our first deal is we're working with the team that had built the Nickelodeon in-house studio to take them out and create an independent studio focused on the kids, family, young adult market. So I'll stop there, except to say that I also have a background at the Federal Communications Commission. There's some interesting things in regulatory policy and other things that I think create a background. Happy to speak to that, and before that also worked in launching a new cable network called Current TV, which is up and running, so background in TV, and happy to speak to that as well.
Great. So Hunter Walk, I guess what excites me about this topic, I think, are what we're seeing in terms of participatory media and platform shifts that allow sort of level playing fields for folks to create, share, contribute. I'm a product manager at Google YouTube, so I've been working on both video and, prior to that, contextual advertising, and for several years before that, helped to start a virtual world called Second Life that's created and built by its participants. So I think since Stanford, I've tried to at first be a lone voice for users being able to do amazing things if you just give them the tools and the right systems and some motivation. And I'm really excited to see how that's all playing out.
So yeah, I'm Mark Chung. I'm a graduate from Stanford, a little old here, class of 87. Years after I got out, I started a company called Snowball.com, which was the first concept of a distributed media vertical network pushing out to the tail, although there was no tail when we started the company, but that was the concept. That company morphed and became IGN, which was a video gaming content and publishing and services company, which we sold to News Corp in October 2005. And as soon as we sold, then I was asked to take over and oversee all of the internet assets of Fox. So I took over MySpace, Fox Sports, American Idol, all the television stations group. And I think our charter was severalfold. One, to try to help traditional media understand how to build a business in the new medium. And traditional media is pretty much dominated by the concept for decades of content and distribution, controlling content and controlling the channel for distribution, whether you vertically integrate on an O&O basis or affiliate or otherwise. Doesn't quite exactly translate to the internet, unfortunately, and it was a challenge. So we took MySpace from, a pretty big property to a ridiculously big property. We couldn't even stop its growth continues to sign 250,000 profiles a day, which means we sign the population of Los Angeles every month. Now, that doesn't mean they're unique profiles, but it's a scary thought. I mean, I think the inventory that we created when I left, we were serving almost 6 billion ads a day, which compared to Yahoo means we grew to the size of Yahoo in almost 2 years, and what Yahoo took 11 years to grow. And it's not email inventory either. So it just goes to show what happens in a new medium when you empower the user base to self-publish, create their own media properties. And it has huge ramifications if it's of interest for us to talk about today. And it's probably a similar parallel conversation going on with Chad and Mark over there from in the other room. But there are huge implications when you deal with a situation where you don't know who owns the content anymore. You can't control distribution. You can't even control or protect your own IP from an infringement, whether it's Nutella on one side, Kazaa on the other side, or frankly, with all due respect, YouTube on the other side where the user believes the 10-minute video they put up is actually something they created when they know they didn't create it. It's a real challenge, but there's a big opportunity. It's changing business models. It's changing where money's being made. It's going to put a lot of companies out of business, this change. It's going to destroy profits for a lot of organizations. They're going to see growth slowing almost to a halt. And this was a big challenge for Rupert Murdoch and his organization. It's something that he embraced and invested in MySpace to say, help us understand how we build a media firm for the 21st century. And that's something we can talk about.
Well, good. So we have investors, we have entrepreneurs, we have people from what you consider today a large company like Google. So those are different perspectives on this, and it would be interesting to get from the audience a little later questions for each of these players here on the panel. So one point which I found interesting here in the last speaker, Mark, spoke about control points. And so that's something that's particular interest to me as a teacher of strategy. So if you are going to start a business as an entrepreneur, where in this new space would you want to look for the control points? What are the ones that around which you can actually build a business that the investors are going to believe you can actually appropriate some rents? What are the control points for you? What are the control points that you look for when you look at a business plan and going across here?
I think our control point is curation. So the self-publishing sort of a revolution has generated an enormous amount of content, as everybody knows, and I think the jury's out a little bit as to what's going to happen to these large sites over the years. I think there's an enormous amount of novelty of being able to participate, and it creates a lot of activity. What happens over time to sort of the value that a user is deriving from coming to see all this information? And I think the next step for everyone is going to be, how do you organize it for people? And that is a time-consuming and difficult task to do. And I think it's going to cross all media, whether it's video or audio. And I think the way we extract our rent is by making that massive sea of music easily accessible and playing just what you like easily. And that's why you tolerate advertising from us, pretty simply put.
Good. Yeah, we can delve deeper into this because I think this is very interesting. But let's go around and see what the other players.
Sorry, I'm trying to put that question in the framework of the things that I'm working on or things that I'm looking at. On the traditional media side, as it relates to control points, it tends to be assets that already have audiences accumulated to them. So I think there is a lot of value still in traditional media assets that have powerful brands or that have potentially distribution, although that's what's one of that's changed, and particularly that has a brand that's in a consumer segment, whether that be a local consumer segment or something that you're cutting demographically, where there is a connection and ability to access that audience. So I'm looking at things which you're buying traditional media assets, but which have particular strength because of its connection with the audience, and it's usually related to the brand and potentially in the distribution. The second part is on the content stuff. It's actually not looking for control points. It's actually kind of giving that up and being a bit more agnostic, but trying to bring something really unique to the marketplace. And I see an opportunity for sort of best-in-class content can be created around in a very disciplined and focused way around particular categories where, as an investor, we're looking to do it out of portfolio. It's not dissimilar from a film fund, but sort of applied into some of these more emerging content categories that can leverage the distribution platforms that exist. Because we can't. That's a game you can't really compete in. And I think content will have that's done by some of the best people in the business, and that is done at a cost point that allows it to be monetized and made effective across the new distribution platforms, is something unique and different that can be brought to market.
Yeah, I guess I think of the control points as becoming, for my business, less vertical and more horizontal. So the things that end in shun, like monetization, personalization, optimization. I mean, that's what Google has always been about, and I think to a certain extent also even what destination sites and what you think of as sort of a video destination site like YouTube is about. To pick one of those and go a little bit further, I guess I think that there's still a lot of work to be done in personalization from a YouTube experience standpoint. So most people come and find that first video that they watch through one of two ways. They've either found it through a search engine, they've typed something in and a video happens to be the answer to their query and they get taken to a site like YouTube to watch it, or it's sent to them by a friend. So somebody gives them a link and says, this is awesome, you got to watch this. So that's the first video experience. Once somebody has watched that, you have the question about the next video. You've started this session, you've started this interaction, and how do you decide what to show them next? And lots of people are exploring these different ideas of, more from this user, or here are also popular videos, and everyone's trying to triangulate around picking what is the perfect next thing to show you, because once they have your attention, they want to extend that for as long as possible and then get you interacting with that content. So personalization and certainly understanding what the consumer wants of this. You can bank on the fact that more media is going to be created more quickly than any one person can comprehend or any one service can support, and so the horizontal idea of helping somebody find what they want to watch, I think, is really powerful.
But maybe later Tim can, since you were talking about how can you organize it for people, ease of use and so forth, that sounds to me like something that should be of direct interest to you. Am I right on that?
Fair to say that, yeah.
But so let's first give it go to Mark and then maybe come back to you for a moment to speak to that issue. Yeah.
With all due respect on the word control, we don't like to use the word control, especially with our audience or with the million of business development partners that we had, for example, at MySpace. I think control to us is important from a monetization standpoint. We're not a 501c. We're here to make money. So I do care a lot about who controls the monetization process, all the tools, utilities, tagging, data schema, contextual management associated with that. There are economies of scale in terms of being able to bring all the forms of monetization, display, performance advertising, e-commerce, link referral, everything else to the table. But everything else from control, we really look at as a platform or service. I mean, unfortunately or fortunately, if you look in the other room, YouTube, PhotoBucket, Image Shack, RockU, they were all built on MySpace. We let these companies get built. We could have stopped the deep linking at any point in time. We saw them when they were 1 million page views. We saw them when they were 100,000 uniques, and they continue to grow. The only time I put my foot down at MySpace was when I see pre-roll or embedded advertising that bypasses our direct sales team on our own inventory, which is a scary concept for a large media firm, because not only have you created an entrepreneurial company, but you're now empowering them to monetize outside of your window of control. So that's where I put my foot down in terms of, I don't want people to monetize outside of our framework. I'll let you build a billion-dollar company inside of our network. That's what the internet is about. So one piece of advice from you from an entrepreneur standpoint, if you're thinking of starting a company, and from a control point or otherwise, at the end of the day, your audience today is so entitled, is so empowered and so intelligent about producing their own content, personalizing their own experience, generating their next site, their next business. You are a service vendor in whatever network you create, whatever product you create, media, network, or otherwise. And I would strongly encourage you to analyze your business model to determine whether or not you truly have a viral business. And a viral business on the internet, to me, replicates what the internet is all about. The internet and the concept of the internet is You, as the N plus one person joining the internet, benefit the N people who are on the internet. That each person who joins the table increases the value for the network. A service firm that simply says, I provide you a service, I'm Jiffy Lube, and I'll oil your car, I'll change your tire, and I'll change your shocks. If you're in line, actually, it's not a benefit that there's 27 other people in line, because you have to wait. You could really care if there's no one there that day. That would actually be a good thing for you. But the internet's not about that. The internet's about what I bring to the table, whether I'm eBay or Amazon or Craigslist or YouTube or MySpace, and how that benefits the collective. Then you have zero cost of customer acquisition. Then you do have a control point, because if you facilitate the service for that network, the network will grow itself. In fact, grow itself so quickly, you're going to have scaling problems, the best problem to have when you grow a business. So just a concept to think about when you think about control.
Do you want to say a few things about your way of dealing with this personalization issue and how this relates to what you're trying to do?
Sure. So our approach to this curation or personalization was to develop a really deep understanding of the product itself, in this case songs. So we actually have a team of about 50 musicians that spend as long as 30 minutes analyzing a song musicologically, so capturing its musical DNA along literally 400 unique dimensions. So we create kind of a musical fingerprint. And the whole purpose of doing that, which is completely insane, and 300 VCs told me that in quick succession over 2 years.
Must have been a good idea.
The whole reason to do that is so that a person could go to the website and just type in one song, and that's it. And they'll get a radio that plays music that's relevant for them. And our sort of underlying premise of this is that, most people, when they go in their lives, don't have a lot of time. And simplicity is really the name of the game in all of this. And the power users and the power using sites, I think, attract a lot of attention. It's interesting, it's advanced. The bloggers are using it, so they're writing about it. But the vast majority of people don't have the time to really go in and use even the most basic of personalization tools. So our thinking was this has to be drop dead simple. And so you just type in a song or an artist and go. And I think that in the long run, I think all of these sites are going to sort of evolve in a similar direction because people don't have a lot of time to do it. You can quickly attract 1 million or 2 million users, but to keep them over the long haul, it has to be sort of really simple. So that's kind of our hypothesis.
Good. Other comments on this? We have another half hour. I think would be good to open it up. I think we have established some key elements here coming from these various perspectives. So I am happy to let you ask some questions. Maybe jump in and ask another one a little later. But what about getting some from you? Anybody wants? Yes.
Sure.
Introduce yourself if you want as well.
I'm Joshua as well. I'm an undergrad here. I have a question as far as regarding professional content and where do you guys see, I guess copyright and IP in general, and just in some of you guys are each in sort of different respective spaces. Like, what do you guys see happening in the next 5-10 years, and issues regarding, like, say, DRM or, like how, the Google, managed to, like, pay off, or Google YouTube managed to pay off some of the copyright owners, et cetera. Where do you guys see, like, the balance, ending up in the next few years as far as professional content holders and the distributed?
Sure. So I guess from what I've seen in my conversations with a lot of the media companies are one, as Mark said, as a service provider who is sort of connecting users with different types of content or allow users to interact with different types of content. There's no doubt that you need to be respectful of the laws on the books, right? So Google and YouTube have been, sort of very focused about, hey, we're going to respect copyright owners and DMCA and all those sorts of things. Beyond that, and then there's the area of, okay, but really there's a lot of stuff out there, and how do you make this sustainable? And by and large, I don't think you're going to see the large media companies salt the earth over these types of emerging services, so long as the emerging services can show them a business model. I think and this is maybe one of the biggest differences between sort of the Napster world and now. I mean, you can get into sort of all the different shades of gray of full work versus short clip and that type of stuff. But I think that people are really excited about the enthusiasm that they're seeing with users interacting with content, whether it's video, music, or images, but want something that's sustainable. and giving, spending a lot of money to produce professional work and then giving it away for free, letting it be manipulated, letting it travel to different countries without receiving anything in return clearly is not sustainable. But if you can monetize it and you can monetize it on behalf and follow it, sort of the atomic unit of that clip, of that song, and send money back to the rights owners, my conversations have suggested that they're very amenable to figuring that out.
This is a really complex topic, an important topic in every boardroom of all the major media firms worldwide right now, and which means there's a business opportunity here for each and every one of you. I guarantee you this going forward. Look at some disturbing trends that can be capitalized upon. First of all, is there really a difference between content and promotion? The whole concept that we want to control our IP is that it's bad for you to rip it off. It's bad for you to use Kazaa Nutella and replicate it in a peer-to-peer network. It's bad for you to post it on YouTube and then post it on MySpace or post it on Orkut. It's bad. We wouldn't want you to do that. So you got to ask yourself your question, why is it bad? Why is it bad? Isn't that promotion? Well, we don't want the full movie there because then no one will go into the theater. Okay, what about 10 minutes? What about 20 minutes? 20 minutes for free on 110 MySpace profiles. You could stop advertising worldwide. You'd probably save yourself $100 million of launch advertising through television and newspaper ads with the New York Times by simply widgeting the product out on every single social network and allowing the users to say, I love X-Men, I love Superman, I love Laguna Beach. And so there is a fine line between content, promotion, and the subscription value. Then you have to take in the fact that maybe you don't charge for the content. Maybe it's over for the music business. Maybe you can't stop replication in the peer-to-peer world. Maybe you're better off switching to an advertising model and allow users to be your distribution channel. If they're going to propagate your content, then why charge for the content? Maybe there's a different business model. Look, we're in here to make money. We're not going to create content and not make money. But how we make money as traditional media is undergoing massive change. And again, if this panel is about entrepreneurship, change equals disintermediation equals opportunity, which means those of you in the audience with no experience are better off than those of us with experience, to tell you the truth, because you don't have any legacy issues, legacy businesses to protect, $1 billion of profit over here, a relationship with Target or Walmart where the CEO calls you if you try to mess with their DVD sales, a relationship with cable or TV if you try to cut a window and put content in real time as it comes out. All these issues are legacy issues to protect core profits from a run rate business, but the new world is coming and it's coming fast, so it's just something to think about.
Yeah, it's interesting because as I heard both of you talk, it struck me that maybe the key is to stay ahead of these older players by showing what's possible, and then you may very well become very attractive to some of these, even to the newer big players. As an
advertising example. So at Fox, obviously we have a sister but hands-off relationship with the sister properties being the Internet Group. 20th Century Fox produces X-Men, X-Men: The Last Stand. We put in a bid to take the advertising dollars as MySpace and the Fox networks. We had to compete with Google, Yahoo, Time Warner, AOL, and everyone else. We wanted 100% share of voice, which means we want all of your budget online. So come up with the big idea for us that's different than the big idea for Yahoo or AOL. Well, our idea is that it's not advertising. Advertising is you pay us some money on a CPM basis, we'll give you some impressions in a window of time, and then it's gone. And we hope brand recall worked, because what's the call to action? You click on the flash unit, and maybe you go to a page, and that's it. No, we're going to do something different. We're going to build you a MySpace profile for the film, and we're going to add friends. And we're going to put your content on that profile, and it'll add friends to click virally on that content and export the trailers or everything to their profiles so that they become a promotional site for you, replicating 1, 2, 4, 8, 2 to the 100th. So we signed several million, 3-4 million profiles on this. And we did an exit poll, 50% exit poll of everyone who saw that movie heard about it on MySpace. Now that is either good or bad. I could tell you it's bad when you divide the value by what we charged. It's bad. It's not bad for Rupert Murdoch because All in the Family, one division got a great marketing deal, and we didn't make enough money as the internet. But in studying that with our sales teams and our marketing teams pulling back, it begs a broader question, which is what is the advertising or promotional model for an internet company working with content in the media space? When you can have that much power by leveraging the user base to promote for you. And how do you charge for that? And should you charge for that? Or should we run embedded pre-roll, contextual roll, or post-roll? What should we do to monetize that effort? We certainly want to tap into the viral concept that you, the reader, you, the user, become our promoter. It's an Amway kind of model, right? Like the old VO5 commercials in the 70s, for any of you who remember that. One, each person signs two people who signs two people. It explodes so fast. And there is no greater marketing or promotional vehicle than viral networking where the user embeds with a passion the brand and promotes that brand for you. You just have to figure out how you charge and capture the value in that promotional change. So it's a topic for a whole class, I think, in of itself.
What's interesting, just to make a point from sort of an investor point of view, for those who are considering starting businesses in this, one point is what's interesting is what's happening in Hollywood right now is actually a lot of the studios are sort of ratcheting back on their investments in original production right now and becoming more marketing and distribution players, just at the same time that the new platforms allow for the disintermediation of some of those exact functions of marketing and distribution. And the second part is that also then creates an opportunity for more independent financing of original content, potentially, if they can develop a strategy about how to effectively leverage some of those new platforms. And I'm seeing, in part because executives, creative and business executives don't want to work in the bigger consolidated media companies because they're going through this radical transformation and they don't want to get stuck running a business unit that's getting the legs knocked out from under them, and because they see the opportunities to get higher returns, that there's a significant opportunity there. The challenge is that the investment marketplace isn't really necessarily structured right now to take advantage of that opportunity. What you see traditional private equity doing is actually trying to play more of the long tail play by acquiring existing libraries so that it can be, because they can value those things, there's revenues associated with that, and they can try to distribute it and exploit its potential across the new platforms and around the new monetization models. You see financing happening around well-understood content categories like the film finance, the film funds, where you see financial institutions and studios hooking up to do that on an increasing basis. What you see little of, because private equity isn't really structured to do it, neither is a lot of the venture capital, the earlier stage investing, because they're still looking for technological sources of a competitive advantage in that. So the financing of content that would allow for portfolio effects that could play in this new and take advantage of the radical transformations of the bigger media companies who are defending their legacy systems as, I think, a significant opportunity to go into.
Media is undergoing a fundamental change. When you shift from a content-oriented company to a platform or services company where you become a services-oriented infrastructure, it's a change of skills. You're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars of market cap and assets and years of experience becoming obsoleted by a new model. That doesn't mean that if you are Universal Pictures or if you're Sony or you're News Corp or you're Time Warner, that you don't have valuable assets. But you have to take into account a very scary phenomenon, and that is the distribution of where content is being created. The concept that in the old days there were 3 network channels, so I can make you a star. Frankly, I can take Britney Spears, who, does not know how to sing, and I can make her a star because I control distribution and I am a publisher. I rock. I'm the publisher. I'm the talent agent. In the blogosphere, with the tens of thousands of blogs being created a minute, real time, with the podcast sphere now being integrated with that, so you can have 10 million TV stations pretty soon on the web with real-time content where the quality of that content could match the quality we produce out of professional studios. With MySpace, with 1.5 million garage bands, where none of them go through a traditional label anymore and put their music right on the site. In the video game business where everything is shifting to subscription and developers and publishers, traditional publishers, now losing money because they don't want to put an obsolete product through a physical channel, You're seeing the fact that I controlled content. I have this cool exclusive content. This person knows better, talks better, is more creative than you, the audience, and I'm going to have a special showing through a controlled distribution channel, and you're going to pay me for that. That model is over. Now, some people don't realize that, or they'll say, come on, Mark, you're extreme, but look at what's happening. Look at the rate of growth. And I think because of that, you have to shift your skill set. The real scary part is that when you're an independent content producer, what you care about is distribution more than money early. So you're willing to allow your content to be promotion. You don't care about subscription. If you said, I'm writing a blog, but it's got to be subscription locked. You want to see how many hits you're going to get a day? Hey, I've got a really cool video game, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it up on a website, but I'm going to charge a fee for a download instead of a 60-day free trial eval. Don't think you're going to do it, right? So what happens is that people want to build a name for themselves. They want to build a brand. They'll say, we'll charge later. They put up that content for free. And that free propagated, and they allow users as the audience, as we talked about, to promote that. And it gets personalized and otherwise, and so they create huge propagation. So now what do you do if you have an asset that you want to charge with? What do you do if you've just invested $50 million in a movie and you have an asset that you want to charge for, and the traditional distribution promotion model has changed? You're competing with people who don't want to charge, who are getting viral distribution at the drop points in the Facebooks, in the Friendsters, in the MySpaces, in the Zangas, in the taggers, in the tag worlds, right? In the Revers, the YouTubes, it's everywhere. And you've got an asset to say, you know what? You got to come to a movie theater and see it. Or you got to buy from me. That model will still continue, but they're moving down, and the distributed universe is moving up. And where they meet is where all the new investment should go. And this is where you can make a lot of money as an entrepreneur, in figuring out how you learn from traditional media to gain some sense and control points and monetization and management, whether it's personalization or syndication or intelligent contextual matching or otherwise, but also take advantage of the fact that you can't control content production anymore. You have to facilitate individualization of content producers, and you have to treat the blogger in Singapore as valuable as the Time correspondent in Washington, D.C. They can write the same. And in fact, the blogger in Singapore can probably write about an earthquake that hits there 10 times faster than someone from D.C. in the Washington bureau office, if you think about it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I don't want to come away from this is the idea that distribution isn't important, right? It's just, I think what Mark's saying is that distribution is changing and being fractured. I still think that in a lot of ways, there's nothing more valuable than being able to direct a focused group of people who care about something to a new offering. Right. And there's just different ways to carry that out. I think at the largest level, I've always described Google as an intention and attention engine. People come to it with intent to find something, and Google directs that attention somewhere. They could direct it to an ad. They could direct it to a website. They could direct it to another Google property that's just all put in front of the user, and they're going to select what's most relevant. When dealing with sort of this mid-tier, this torso content providers, and thinking about how a YouTube, how a Google can help them, the first thing that always comes out of their mouth, even before monetization, is distribution. Because by and large, a lot of them don't have an audience they're selling into. And looking at just some of the technology platforms that have availed themselves to these folks, it's all great, it's bells and whistles, but then at the end of the day, it's not adding incremental distribution. They're not helping them build a business. And so that's why you see some of the folks that in the video space, for instance, who started out with just middleware, now trying to create consumer destination properties around that because they want to aggregate enough of an audience to be able to say, hey, give us your content, we'll give you 10x distribution. And also in the world of advertising and monetization, unless you just want to plug in AdSense, which I think is a great solution, but those people who want to try to build direct relationships with advertisers, agencies, nobody cares about your 25,000 people if you're doing a real sort of large direct sales force. I mean, you need orders of magnitude larger than that in order to come up with real significant direct buys to be able to legitimize having a sales force. Now, if you don't want to do that, and that's not the solution for everybody, there's lots of other ways to tap into the sales efforts that Google or other companies have generated. But you still need scale if you want to control all of those relationships. Otherwise, you're just going to be in the point of picking from the best service providers and optimizing what works for your particular business.
How does this strike you all, Tim?
Well, so I was in the office of a big label, one of the big four, just a couple days ago in LA, and it was all the new media people and marketing folks, and they have no idea what to do right now. but they asked me, what would you do if you were in our shoes? Because their big sellers now are selling a tenth of what they used to. And I said, I think I would probably, if you guys are basically VC, you're like VCs. You make a small number of very large investments every year. And per what everyone has just said, it's hard to get a return now, on the kind of money that people typically invest in a record. So rather than being a VC, start thinking of yourselves as an incubator, where rather than making a small number of big investments, pull in sort of a whole farm system of musicians. And maybe it's 30 or 40 or 50. And these are folks who come to you with a professionally produced CD, which they did on their freeware they get with an Apple laptop now, and provide them with the expertise you have in artist development and marketing and promotions and touring and all those things. And you're a service organization that sort of caters to this group of musicians, and some number of them are going to be able to sort of establish some level of success, and your investment in them can be pretty minimal. So I think that the large media companies, I'm guessing over time, will evolve a little bit more in the direction of being incubators and putting a lot more bets and lending expertise and, of course, distribution, if they have that, to those artists or assets or whatnot. That's my guess.
Good, thank you.
Where are we going to be in 5 years from now?
I guess a public policy perspective, and then maybe a quick anecdote. On a public policy level, this was a lot simpler in an era of finite distribution assets that were licensed by the government, like radio licenses and TV licenses. And each of the media platforms have their own set of policies that are associated with it. So broadcasts have been the most restrictive because that's something that's been, we have a policy of sort of free over-the-air broadcast that everybody should be able to get it, so that's been the most restrictive. Cable, slightly less so because it's a pay service, but still, and then the internet, less and less. I do not, there are obviously some set of rules and regulations that are applied to the internet in terms of content. I think that you'll probably hear more barking than bite as we have more sort of sensational examples of maybe some of the things you're talking about sort of breaking through to the public consciousness. But I think that we will most likely look towards technological and behavioral kinds of solutions to those things, just as we did actually on the old platforms, which were things like empowering parents and young people with tools to set their own restrictions on how it works, and then in some other instances, as it's done on eBay and other models, restrictions that are actually driven by the user community themselves. And these guys could probably speak more effectively than I can, that it's impossible really that the empowering the users to actually try to monitor and take action in those type of behaviors is probably really the ultimate solution.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I would separate out things that are deemed to be illegal, because those have a whole separate sort of need to deal with structure that are different than content that may or may not be mainstream, content that may or may not be the types of experiences you want your 7-year-old or your kid to stumble upon. When I was building Second Life, I learned about the furries, and the furries are people who like to wear animal costumes, and there's furries that like to wear full animal costumes, and there's furries that don't seem to like to wear pants or things like that. And you know, to some extent, like I don't care about the furries, because they don't, the fact that people like to do that don't bother me. But in the other case, from sort of developing the platform, I love the furries. I love the fact that we could give sort of a virtual environment for people who want to wear these costumes and not wear pants to do what they do. Now, as a person who needs to build a business and maintain the platform and say, well, how can this not just be about furries but be about anybody? You know, I sort of what Jamie was saying kind of hits home for me. I think it's our obligation to give tools to every user to help them shape their experience. And I think the communities that do the best job of allowing people in a very simple way, back to sort of the personalization before, you don't want to have to start flipping dozens of switches before you experience something the way you want to do it. But the communities that are able to help that and help people find like individuals who can share experiences that you enjoy will be the ones that succeed. I mean, sometimes it's as simple as, from a Google perspective, as do you want your safe search on or do you want your safe search off? There's a whole bunch of things that Google indexes that if you have your safe search, off and you want to find and it's legal, we will probably take you there. But so buyer beware if you want to turn Safe Search off. But if you do, I don't want to prevent you from finding things that aren't mainstream, but are of particular interest to you. I mean, that's sort of the dark side, I guess, of the long tail, right? When somebody's looking for a very specific piece of bondage gear, it's beautiful. We'll help you find it, I guess.
The real world, not Second Life or MySpace or Google, is strife and full of illegal activity, offensive activities to certain constituencies, pornography, prostitution, drugs, bad things, pedophilia. It's there. It's out there in the real world by definition. The issue is that online access is not being controlled, whereas theoretically in the real world, government has been able to regulate access. They've been able to put brown wrappers on pornographic magazines in newsstands. They've been able to control access to X-rated or R-rated films by age verification in the theater. They put pressure, like Giuliani or otherwise, to clean up cities and limit prostitution in terms of visibility on the streets and otherwise. So they do things both proactively and, in some cases, reactively to deal with controlling against public outreach and public sentiment, things that the norm, and I'm saying this as a liberal person, the norm would say, we don't want to see that. Online, the primary issue that we're dealing with today is not protecting the adult from the adult, but protecting the child from the adult. And that is a much bigger issue. Everything we've dealt with, and believe me, we have spent at MySpace and News Corp between lobbying and meetings. You don't want to know how many hours we've been in meetings with lawyers and attorney generals because MySpace became the poster child as an example of let's take them down first. Because frankly, every time a child disappears in the United States, it's got to be because someone found them on their MySpace page, right? Guilty until proven innocent. The real issue is not, is there a site called Adult Friend Finder? Are there pornographic issues? The real issue is, are people the age they say they are? And what you can do. Let's take a Second Life. You mentioned when you walk into Second Life, you're going to see offensive in many cases or pornographic things when you drop in, but not if you're under 18. Albeit, if you're under 18 and you log in and register under 18, you go into a safe zone. And on your 18th birthday, if you ask Philip Rosedale, you are introduced through a gateway to the Second Life world, which may put you into total shock. Happy birthday, right? But, yeah, what a birthday present, right? What am I getting for my birthday? I'm going into the Second Life world, right? But who says you're 18? What if you're 13 and you register and you're 19? You say you're 19, and so you're exposed immediately. Age verification is a huge issue. It's not that easy. The driver's license systems in the states across the U.S. aren't consistent. They're not consolidated. There's no fingerprint. There's no real way to validate age verification. So that is a much bigger issue. But to say we're going to protect the 22-year-old from the 22-year-old looking at a pornographic result on a Google search or in Second Life or on a MySpace page, I don't think from a media, and I don't know, this may sound liberal, it's our responsibility. It's our responsibility to give the tools, as Hunter said, to you, the user, so that you can manage your experience so that you don't have to continually be affronted with content that you find offensive. It's also our responsibility to give you the tools as a publisher, depending upon where you stand in that liberal to conservative standpoint, to be able to modify what you display to people when they come and the authentication that you request when people visit your site. But it's not our responsibility to cross that line from a political or social issue and say, you know what, pornography is not something should exist on this planet, so we're going to eradicate it. That's not our job. That's not the job of media. Certainly not the job of media to see where money has been made, and certainly not the job of Comcast. They make a lot of money, with all due respect to them, off of pornographic channels, but they control and limit that within reason.
The last thing I'll just say, this is something where the industry and users are going to be ahead of where the policymakers are on this, and both in terms of the regulation, also in the way that policymakers talk about it and frame it as a public issue, whether there's laws that can be passed about it as well. And so I know that I'm starting to advise, one of the presidential campaigns on this, and there's a group of us who sort of live in this blended space. So to the extent that you have ideas about this, I think this is actually, it will likely become an issue in the coming years. And I think it's a good time to sort of contribute that so we can craft a third way, on this.
two business opportunities here that are big, if you want to think big. These are multiple billion-dollar business opportunities. These aren't $100 million opportunities. Difficult to solve. A lot of people are looking at it. A lot of research institutions. One, how do you create an age verification system for the internet so that you can control a child's experience on the internet or on the cellular phone? Control the experience. You're not giving them the freedom because through public regulation or otherwise, there are laws that we want to protect children worldwide. This is a big issue. There are a lot of ramifications. Issue number two, how do you provide the capability for content recognition to screen out offensive content created by a user community? Every day, you don't want to know how many tens of thousands of photos are uploaded on MySpace a day. We are doing it manually with people in a room that looking at thumbnails every minute, tens of hundreds of people, because all the software in the world, all of Humpty Dumpty's men could not solve this problem. And we went to all the top research institutions in the country, IBM, Xerox, AT, looked at all the computing power that it had and ran tests to say, okay, here are 10,000 photos. There are 1,150 pornographic photos in this. We want 100.00% compliance on your test, right? Some of them come back and said, well, look, we will guarantee that we'll catch all of them, but we'll also catch a peach, a horse, and a stone because it looks pornographic to us. So at least that increases your efficiency, but you still have to have manual intervention. That's better than, ooh, we missed 4, right? Because you can't validate to say, look, we're clean if you don't do it manually. So image recognition, content recognition in a video for Google, this is Ask Hunter, you guys are working on this. This is
if you perfect this, don't just try to license this. Build an ad network,
right.
That you can identify the content. Because I think one of the where all of us who have volume businesses and more things becoming ad supported, there's this large question about the type of content, understanding what a piece of content is programmatically, and being able to match, declare whether or not that is a advertiser-friendly environment, and then automatically put the relevant ad against it. That's what a lot of folks who are trading in user-generated content are trying to scale. And if they can, all of a sudden these immense traffic numbers become even more valuable.
So Tim, I'm sitting next to you. I'm always hitting on you, but you told us you like to help people find just what you like and what they like. Is this an issue for you?
Well, so we're different in the sense that we actually pick what goes in. So ours is really carefully curated. And the way we face it is, gosh, should this go in or not? And making an editorial decision, and Lord knows there's gray area there. And I'm not sure that we actually have an answer we're quite comfortable with yet, whether it's hate music or, music that is intentionally offensive, of which there's a fair bit. And for the time being, I'd say we're definitely are on the side of putting stuff in if it has an audience, not wanting to sort of step up and say we decide this is where the line gets drawn. But I don't think this has a happy ending. Your question is, how do you fix it? I don't know. I mean, I haven't heard or seen anything that looks even close to a solution.
On this challenge, I think we'll have to call it because I think it goes until 3 o'clock or slightly over. Thank you for the time.